Ohai. Termez, the most southern city of Uzbekistan, the administrative center and the largest city of the Circundaria Wilayat, is one of the most ancient cities of Central Asia and Uzbekistan, to it more 2500. In 2014 Termez was awarded the order to Amir Temur. In Termez and its vicinities a number of the most ancient archaeological and architectural sites, ruins of ancient Zoroastrian, Nestoriansky and Buddhist fortresses and ancient settlements and also monuments of Islamic architecture remained. Antiquity and Early Middle Ages. Date of foundation of the city of Old Termez, located in several kilometers to the east of the modern city, is unknown. In April 2002 the celebration of the 2500th anniversary of the city of Termez was held. Historical kernel of Termez, the rectangular citadel constructed at the Circundaria River, the Long Party, about 470 meters, extended along the coast. Termez, one of the most ancient cities of Central Asia. In the 6th century BBI was a part of the state of Achaemenid. Already at the time it is described as the ancient city. In 329 BB he was won by Alexander of Macedon. Later the founder of the Greek Bactrian kingdom Demetri called the city of Demetrius, is a part of the Kashansky kingdom. From I to the 3rd centuries, the city was called, in the Chinese sources, Tumi, Tami. During this period around the Termez citadel there was a city sacristan with a total area of 70 hectares. Possibly, then Termez with his vicinities was protected by the Big Wall, which surrounded the territory about 450 hectares. Kashansky Termez was the large center of the Buddhism in Turkestan. In the 5th century, the first half of the 6th century Termez was under the power of Iftalit as a part of the historical and geographical area Turkestan. In the period of West Turkic Kagan Tun's government to Eyüp, 618-630. Termez was a part of the state Iraq, and in Turkestan Kagan's son Tardush Shad was appointed the supreme Yabu deputy. However, Turkestan wasn't united in a single whole, and remained shattered into 27 small possessions which governors submitted to a Turkic Yap. Tardush Shad based a dynasty Turkestansky, reigning up to the Arab invasion. At the end of the 7th century Termez was captured by the rebellious Arab commander Musa ibn Abdullah, who ruled here, without submitting to the deputy of the Arab Caliph, 15 years. Possibly, at this time there was extensive robot of Termez which adjoined a Shakristan about which write the Arab sources of the 10th century. He was protected by walls too. To the north of city walls the suburb, where there were few buildings was formed, but there were tents of nomads. In 705 the city was occupied by the Arab Caliphate. In the 9th-10th centuries Termez, the large city, the shopping, craft, scientific and cultural center. At this time length of defensive works of the city was 10 km, there were 9 gate. After Arabs the city Seminiyami was won. For 100 years, within the 11th, 12th centuries Termez fell into hands serially Ghaznavidev, Karakanidev, Seldskidev and in 1206, Horam-Shafaf. In the western part of the Termez Shakristan, which for some reason in the 11th century became empty, there was a cult complex over Al-Hakim's grave of Anatomisa. Other esteemed place arose in the north of a Shakristan, at a city wall. Here on the general platform, near the pre-Islamic building of type where the Dilak, Kioshka, where the barracks was constructed, the mosque known as Chor Sultan, and near her a minaret, one of the oldest in Central Asia. In 1220, after a 10-day siege, the city was crushed and plundered, and the population is universal is exterminated by Chinggis Khan's troops. Liv, on a whim of destiny or aggressors, was only a southeast suburb where in the 14th century there was in essence a new city. Near Termez, in the village Bayer, there was the first meeting of Amir Temur with the famous Sheikh Sayyid Barak, who in an omen of future victories presented him a banner and a drum. Termez had important political value in the second half of the 14th century, and Amir Temur held very considerable authority on these areas. In the period of government of Amir Temur and his descendants, Termez as one of the main crossings through Amudarya on the international trade track was among the most known cities of Transoxiana. Here ways of the caravans passing from China on the west in the southern direction and also from India to Transoxiana were crossed. Termez took especially important place in trade and ambassadorial communications of the state of Temuridav with China in the first quarter of the 15th century. The trade caravans and ambassadors from the western countries following to Transoxiana in the period of Amir Temur's government also usually went through Termez. For example, the way of embassy of the King of Castle and Leon to Samarkand to Amir Temur's yard, led by Rui Gonçalves de Clavijo lay through Termez. Clavijo in the diary left the detailed description of the stay in this city. He gave the best description of this new city. Having entered the city, we so long went through squares and crowded streets that came home tired and angered. During the considered period, Termez was also one of the large cultural centers of Transoxiana. The historian Tuhafizi Ababe included him in number of 4 cities of Edge: Bukhara, Samarkand, Termez, Hodhent. During rule of Shakrak, Termez was under Uligbek's supervision. Through Termez, Uligbek's way at numerous visit lay by inherit and return back, that is, he was transported through Jaikon, Amudarya, at Termez. In 1449, Uligbek at a performance on back of the minding rebellious son Abdulatif concentrated the troops also near Termez. Termez after the death of the Sultan Abu Saida was included into destiny of his son Sultan of Mahmud. Here Hussein Akbar, who according to Baber was Sultan's relative of Mahmud, governed on behalf of the Sultan. It is known also that one of Sultan Mahmud's wives was a daughter of the world Buzuga Termezi, one of men of weight of Termez. Sultan had big authority on the city. In 1506, Termez became a part of the state of Shaybanadav. For management of the city of husbands of Termez of Shibanihan Syed Muhammad Sultan, the descendant of Bube Sultana, appointed. In the 1530th years, Termez was included in structure of Bakulki destiny Shibanidav. During a dominion time in Balkistan Kara Sultan. 1527-1536. Tursun Muhammad Sultan, Mahdi Sultan's son, who became then Humayun Zalai, was a governor of Termez. In 1571, Abdullah Khan II announced an army appeal for a campaign to Termez. The Padishah Muhammad Sultan, the brother Deen Muhammad Sultan, was a governor of the city at the time. On the offer Abdullah Khan II to hand over the city, he refused. Then the city underwent a siege and was taken.
In May-June 1572, Abdullah Khan of Chu appointed the governor of Termez the cousin Mahmud Sultan, the son Sulayman Sultan.
Later Abdullah Khan too visited in Termez graves of Sayyid, a grave of a pole of saints of a hauta of Muhammad Ali Termezi, the Sheikh Abu Bakr Varak and other great sheikhs.
At Ashtar Khanate in Termez external strengthenings didn't exist anymore, nevertheless the city remained the center of area.
In the 17th century Termez remained the center of culture. Hajj's historian Samandar Termezi was a native of Termez. To the second half of the 18th century he came to desolation. In the neighborhood of the ancient city inhabited there were only kishlaks of Salavat and Pataksar.
In January 1893 lands at the Kishlak of Patajisar were transferred by the Bukhara Emirate to the Russian government for construction on this place of boundary military strengthening.
Fortress, the military camp and river port on Amudarya were constructed. In 1928, already as a part of the Yasser, Patajisar received the ancient name Termez. In 1929 the settlement received the status of the city, having become till 1967 the most southern city of the country. During the Soviet war in Afghanistan Termez was an important military base. The military airfield, the automobile and railway bridge through Amudarya, Drofby Bridge, was constructed.
For years of the Soviet power the industrial enterprises were constructed, the teacher training college and theater are open.
On the basis of teacher training college in 1992 the Termez State University is created. The military airfield of Termez is used by the Air Force of Germany for transit of freights to Afghanistan.
In July 2009 the decision on creation of the regional railway junction Termez, which will become one of the main points in the transit of non-combat freights to Afghanistan planned by NATO is made.
Transit will be carried out through territories of Russia, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, bypassing Turkmenistan, through the highway of Tashkazar Basin Kurgan laid in 2009. Geography. Termez is the most southern city of Uzbekistan.
It is located on the right river bank Amudarya, on which there passes the border of Uzbekistan with Afghanistan when falling the Surkhandarya river into her.
In the city on the Amudarya River there is the largest river port of the country in which the Amudarya River Flotilla of Uzbekistan is based. Distance to the Afghan Mazar-i-Sharif, about 80 km on automobile or on a railway track, to Kabul, more than 425 km. Distance on automobile or on a railway track. To Dushanbe, in the northeast. More than 235 km, to Karshi, in the northwest. About 250 km to Samarkand, in the north. About 330 km to Bukhara, in the northwest. About 430 km to Tashkent, in the northeast. About 650 km. Climate of Termez, hot desert with soft, but for such width in rather cold winter. With warm days and cool nights, quite serious cold snaps or snowfalls are sometimes possible. And an exclusively hot summer. The overwhelming amount of precipitation drops out during the period from November to April. In the summer rains are extremely rare. Average annual humidity of air -55%. Average annual speed of wind -2.9 m/s. Average annual temperature +17.5 C. On February 4, 2014, the absolute minimum of temperature in the city for all history of observations -21.7 C is recorded. As of January 1, 2019, the population of the city is more than card people, the 15th in the country. Population as of January 1, 2014, 136,200 inhabitants. The main share of the population is made by Uzbeks, also Tajiks, Russians, Tatars, Turkmens and other nationalities live in the city. There is a small Afghan diaspora. In the religious plan, the majority is made by Sunni Muslims. There are also Christians. Generally, Orthodox Christians, Shiites, Baka and others. Transport. In the city, the public transport presented by buses and share taxis functions. Also the state and private taxi services work. In the southeast part of the city there is the Termez river port. In the city there is an international airport, Termez, which has regular air traffic with Tashkent, with some other large cities of Uzbekistan and also with some Russian cities, including Moscow and St. Petersburg. Termez is the main southern gate of Uzbekistan. N12 came to the east from Termez. Down the river Amudarya passes the pedestrian, automobile and railway cross-border bridge Haratan, also known as Trufby Bridge, which is only boundary checkpoint between Uzbekistan and Afghanistan. Daily through the bridge in both parties there pass people, cars, trucks and cargo trains. This city is one of the main railway junctions of the southern Uzbekistan. From Termez the international cargo railway road conducting to the Afghan city of Mazar-i-Sharif begins. Actually the railroad goes to the international airport, Mazar-i-Sharif, 8 km to the west from the city.
Distance between Termez and Mazar-i-Sharif, about 80 km on an automobile or railway track.
Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.